Hello and welcome to another episode of Grassroots, the show that celebrates the people at the coalface of this great industry. Welcome in Sam Doran to the show. Sam, I know this show is close to your heart. It's about a country, a very big racing country, that you've visited several times.
Indeed, I have. We're talking about Japan. We've not long had the Japan Cup being run. We've seen the world's best racehorse. We might meet a miniature version of him today as well. But we're also going to concentrate on two champion horses that competed in Japan from Australia. Two great, real proper horses.
I studied Japanese for 6 years in school. Ooh. Still haven't got over there. Not that I probably can remember too many words from 20 years ago, but it's one country that really fascinates me, and especially the strength of their racing industry, which seems to be growing and growing.
It's on the rise, and every time the Japanese bring horses here to Australia, we always have to circle them in our form guides, regardless of what their form is at home. When they come here or they travel globally, they're always very, very hard to compete. It's a great culture. It's a great racing culture at the same time. It's very different to what we have here, but it's worth immersing yourself in.
One of the biggest training centres in Japan is the Miho Training Complex. Many of the big names train there, and it has produced many champions of the turf in Japan. Let's start off taking a look at Miho.
When it comes to producing star racehorses, the Miho Training Centre in Japan is pound for pound one of the best and largest facilities in the world. And we had the pleasure recently of going behind the scenes to check it out, thanks to the JRA. About 100 kilometres northeast of Tokyo, Miho is one of two major training centres in Japan, alongside the Rito Training Centre, which is further west. More than 2,000 horses call the base home, with leading trainers Tetsuyo Kimura, Sake Kaneda and Moriyuki Hori all based at Miho. Among the notable horses trained at Miho is the highest rated horse in the world, the champion himself in Equinox, and most mornings you can see him leading all the horses out when the gates open for track work. Other recent champions, like Jewel Japan Cup hero Almond Eye and the beast from the East Morris, who now stands at Arrowfield Stud in Australia, also called Miho home during their racing careers. Track work normally starts at about 7 a.m, and hundreds of horses gather at the entrance beforehand to wait for the gates to open. Once the track is opened, a sea of horses make their way out to work within minutes. May look like chaos to the uninitiated, but it works like clockwork for the trainers, track riders and grooms. Training tracks include turf, synthetic and dirt surfaces, while the recently renovated uphill wood chip gallop is also very popular. A large swimming pool precinct and an equestrian arena with dressage and show jumping facilities provide other options for trainers to condition their horses. It's easy to see why horses trained at Miho are competitive in elite races in Japan and further abroad. It truly is a world-class training facility.
Sam, in Victoria, we've got the Cranbourne Training Complex, which we've seen grow in recent years, and now Ballarat is following suit. But that's nothing compared to what they've got at Miho. It's just incredible.
I think if we put together cumulatively Pakenham, Cranbourne, Ballarat, which are Geelong, probably our four biggest training centres here, maybe throw Warrnambool in for good measure, there'd still be plenty of room left over for the horses. And having been to Japan a number of times, the one thing that you do learn when you're there is how organised they are with everything. So when you hear that there are 2,000 to 3,000 horses being trained at one particular facility, that would be as smooth as anything that you have ever seen. It would be worth going out to Miho just to look at the organisation of the teams out there. I know we've probably spoken about Tommy Smith in the past, about how he used to train 120 horses in 3 hours. It'd probably be something similar like that.
Just works like clockwork. Everyone knows their place. Doesn't look like anyone's bustling or fighting each other. It just It's like that every morning.
And it's only 90 minutes out of town. It's when you go to Tokyo and you fly in, and I think there's about 25 million people live in the greater Tokyo area. There are lots of parks around, but it's amazing to know that there is this huge horse park only 90 minutes away, which is not that far away from the airport as well. So it's worth investigating. I actually haven't been there. I've been to Japan a number of times, but I'll be putting Miho on my bucket list for the next time I'm going that way.
When we're talking about Japan and Australian horses, it's hard not to recap Better Loosen Up, isn't it? He was one of my favourites as a kid growing up, and of course he flew the flag for Australia in the 1990 Japan Cup.
Clark has pulled the whip and Better Loosen Up and Stylish Century. It's now Better Loosen Up and Citizen.
Better Loosen Up going after him, but running in and further out of the track with a great runner's ode.
Easily the best horse I've ever trained. An amazing horse. I think through that stellar spring and autumn, he won 8 in a row, all at the elite level.
Better Loosen Up is giving Stylish Century 25 length start at the halfway point.
The Cox Plate, that was your first Group 1.
I'll never forget. We'd won all the lead-ups. At the 1,000-metre mark, I turned to my father and said he's got a bit to do, and Dad said, oh, you've got your whole life to train a Group 1 winner. Not today.
Citizen and Better Loosen Up coming at them. It's Canny Lad, Citizen, Better Loosen Up from St Jude. It's now Better Loosen Up and Citizen. Better Loosen Up goes home best. David Hayes first up wins it.
Now, that Cox Plate win, was that the run that earned him an invitation to Japan?
Yeah, it was between him and Superimpose, and he got the nod. So it was very competitive in those days. It was a go-to place for a horse.
Clark has pulled the whip and Better Loosen Up and Stylish Century fight it out nose and nose.
He had a lead-up race in the McKinnon a week later because we felt he needed a really hard couple of runs to be ready for it. And did he ever need it? They ran a world record in Japan.
He was a horse that was hard to gauge because he was very lazy and relaxed on the track, and he put his best foot forward on the race day.
I think because he had such a good nature, by travelling to Japan didn't worry him a lot. He was one of those horses that didn't sweat a lot, and he was a good doer.
There were some of the best horses from all over the world. Arc Form, King George Form from England, the champion 3-year-old of the year. They all rocketed through big shiny colts. And my plain little bugger got lost out on the track, and I think he ran home in a startling 28. But I knew, but it did look ordinary.
When I got to Japan, I rode in track work, and David said to me, you know, what do you think? I said, oh, it just feels so fantastic, like the trip over hasn't affected him at all. Kevin Moses rode Stylish Century in the race. When I got around to the barriers, I said to Kevin, I said, can you believe this crowd? I've never seen nothing like it. He goes, I thought it was like a rock star. You know, he said he'd never experienced that as well, and he rode all around the world. The crowd, the way the Japanese do it, they just love their horse racing.
Line is good. They're off.
Michael Clark was the right man for the job on that day?
He really was. I remember we walked the track and Michael said, we won't, against these horses, we can't circle them like we always do. He said, I want to cut the corner, have a bit of luck in the straight, and then go. It's exactly what he did.
Well back was Better Loosen Up when they turned for home.
When I came around the turn, he travelled into the race, and I was lucky enough to get a gap. When it got into the real fight, the last 200 metres, I was sort of going head to head, but I had the confidence because knowing how much he'd fight on and not willing to let another horse pass, which he didn't.
The 200-metre mark, 2 lengths in front. Better Loosen Up going after him, but running in and further out on the track with a great runner's ode. Oda's after Kakawithi's Better Loosen Up, and the middle is coming with a magnificent run. Kakawithi's Better Loosen Up and ode. Better Loosen Up in the middle's put his head in front. Better Loosen Up has won for Australia. Better Loosen Up has won the Japan Cup.
It took so long for the photo finish to go up, and I was just so lucky I wasn't wrong, but I was pretty sure I'd just won.
I knew he'd got it. I had blind faith in him, probably a bit too much. Just thought he'd get the job done, he'd get the job done. Positive thinking, and it happened. And it was just unbelievable. There was 156,000 people at the races. He ran a world record 1.5 miles to win. And it was one of the vintage Japan Cups with the benefit of hindsight. He truly was a super horse. That period before he blowed his tendon, I'd back him against any of the stars these days.
I vividly remember, I was only 7 years of age, but I remember watching the Japan Cup. You know?
They cut into the cricket. There was a test match on in Brisbane, I think it was, and I don't know whether Kerry Packer made the big phone call and said, you've got to get across to the Japan Cup, but they did that day. And I love the comment at the finish there from David Hayes saying that Better Loosen Up would have stood up with any of the modern champs. And I absolutely agree with him before that tender. And when he went through that Group 1 autumn-spring campaign of his that included the McKinnon Stakes, Cox Plate, Japan Cup, I don't think there was a horse that we've had in the last 50 years that would have been able to go with him. He was an absolute champion. Go back, if you're under the age of 40, go back and have a look at his replays.
And Better Loosen Up lived to a grand old age of 30 out at Living Legends.
Yeah, very, very important horse out at Living Legends as well, along with Fields of Omar and Might and Power as a foundation horse out there. So we've got a lot to thank for Better Loosen Up.
Do you reckon back in 1990 they would have had a turfy though?
I don't know. They might not have had it. If they did, they
and this
might
is what
have,
a turfy
This
is
is what a
if you don't
turfy
know.
is. If they were going to have one at Better Loosen Up, it would have been very plain because he wasn't the best-looking horse, but gee, did he have an enormous motor as well. He was just a brilliant horse. This is Equinox, this one.
So give us a little, just what are these little things?
Well, we're going to find out a little bit more from James's story in a second. But if you do go to the races in Japan, they have what is known as the turfy store, and all the very popular horses of the time. And even going back a few years, they're available for sale there. I've got some beautiful Kidderson black hat that's got ears on it as well. That was bought back for me. My friend Sue-Ann Kaur recently bought this back from Japan for me as well. And we'll find out a little bit more with James at the turfy store.
The level of fanfare in Japanese racing is absolutely incredible, and to be honest, you don't get a great appreciation until you're here in the flesh and you see it. We're at Tokyo Racecourse, 24 hours out from the Group 1 Japan Cup. Relatively low-key meeting, but there are still thousands of people trackside, and we've just ventured into what they call the turfy store here on track, and we spent about 10 minutes in there, and there were hundreds of racing fans that filed in and out to get a piece of unique racing memorabilia, including these iconic turfies, which they have in the colours and in the shapes of some of their equine icons, including this guy. This is Equinox, one of the best sellers here. So it is incredible that the love they have for their equine stars here in Japan. And in the spirit of the Japan Cup, and thanks to the JRA and Arrowfield, keen to get amongst it and share some of the love with the racing.com audience. So jump onto our Facebook page. We're going to give away a Japan Cup, a little bit of a prize pack with some merch. One of these Equinox turfies, a Japan Cup, had a few other bits and pieces. We want you to answer one simple question. Of course, no Australian trained horses in Japan for the Cup this year, but if we were to send one in 2024, who would you send? Which Aussie horse or Australian trained horse do you think could match it against some of Japan's best? Head to our Facebook page, get amongst the competition there, and one of you could be taking away this Equinox turfy and some unique Japan Cup merchandise.